can't believe that I'm sitting here knitting again. It takes me back to 1914, just the beginning of the war, when all the women would gather together and we would knit for our soldiers overseas, making them socks and comforters. Oh, the knitting women's group. We would sit and knit and chat, and all the while the real transformation was going on in their hearts of rebellions. We would often sit and chat about the suffragettes, but those knitting women, they weren't very kind. They called those suffragettes unwomanly and hysterical. But they know now, Lord bless their souls, the peaceful ways of prayers and petitions and tears did not succeed. No, it was the suffragettes, willing to chain themselves to railings, to be imprisoned and even forcefully fed. Those were the ones that made things succeed. Yes, they saw the light, those knitting women. They soon began to understand that the suffragettes were really fighting for every woman's battle, fighting for the recognition of human life and fighting for every mother's point of view. Why, we were proud to be called crazy. Oh, it takes me back to my days of rallies. Oh, forgive me. I haven't even introduced myself. My name is Nellie McClung. Of course, I've been dead since September the 1st, 1951, but we all know that we live on in our souls, and in my case, the passion for equality too. You see, I've heard there's going to be a great big rally for women. They say that it could even be bigger than the rally of 1912, when 20,000 suffragettes marched down Fifth Avenue in New York, all wearing white and united for equality for women. Oh, it was too bad that my dear friend Elizabeth Cady Stanton wasn't able to make it. She died 10 years earlier, you see. But I've heard a rumor that this rally could be much bigger than that. They say that there might be 1 million women marching all around the world, all united for equality. Imagine it, 1 million women, and they're all going to be wearing pink pussy hats. That's why I'm knitting. Although, I must admit, I do find the term rather vulgar. But so much has changed in the last 65 years, including language. I'm just excited that women are finally making a stand again. You see, I think women have become complacent. I cannot believe how much independence they now have, and yet they seem to take it for granted. It appears they've forgotten how much I fought to give them equality in my day. I remember I published 15 books, I wrote speeches and newspaper articles, I toured across the country, all to encourage women to stand up for their rights for equality and demand to be treated fairly. Well, I can even remember when I was 9 years old. I remember it was a picnic and I was so excited for the girls' race. But then I was told there wouldn't be a girls' race. Apparently, nice little girls and big ones don't run because it might show off their ankles as their skirts fly everywhere. I said, why not? And I was hushed up. Well, you wouldn't hush me up. Later, when I was 16 years old and I became a school teacher, I remember I went out and I played football with the children, running around in my dress. It was a little unconventional, I admit, and it did raise a few eyebrows. But my fight for gender equality had begun. Several years later, in 1915, when I published my collection of speeches in my book In Times Like These, I said, "The time has come when women will not be hushed up. when we will be economically free and mentally and spiritually independent, when women will receive equal pay for equal work, and there will be a new movement among women who are crying out for larger humanity. Well, my friends, perhaps this march is an indication that that time has come. A new movement among women. How exciting. Although, I must admit, I don't know why they had to choose pink. It's such a traditional color. After I spent all that time trying to persuade them to get rid of the stereotypes and teach them that pink frills was not the answer. But it seemed like it was the opinion of the world that women must make themselves attractive to men so that they could procure a husband to take care of them. Didn't they realize that women knew how to take care of themselves? I should know. I was born in rural Ontario and lived in the Surrey Valley of Manitoba, working hard on farm chores and household chores. You see, when I first joined the Political Equality League in 1912 and started my work arguing for women's independence and the right to vote, it was felt then that housekeeping was the only job for women, that all women must love and enjoy being housekeepers whether they liked it or not. Why, it was even believed that women just adored housework and simply pined for the Monday morning when they could get to the weekly wash. Yes, women in my day were not admired for their intelligence, and it was most certainly not considered right for a woman to become involved in politics. I mean, can you believe it, that they even tried to tell us that it was wrong to be involved in politics, for politics were just too corrupt for women. I said, it's when they're corrupt that we must get involved. We couldn't just shut our eyes and take no interest. Oh, they thought it was quite fine for women to be concerned with feeding the hungry or snipping away at symptoms of poverty. But when we began to inquire about the causes of the distress and the reasons for the poverty, well, then we found ourselves in the realms of politics and prejudices and clearly saying that, whoa, women must enter politics. Ah, yes. But I was very lucky. You see, I married my dear, sweet Wes McClung. I married him in 1896, and he always supported me. Most men would not support women in politics, or women even. It seems that they didn't think that they should rise to anything particular or any public position, including women lawyers or policemen or women in the pulpit even. But Wes, he always supported me. Most of them were too worried that women might leave the sanctity of their own home. I think really they were probably more worried that they might get into comfortable jobs with good positions and good pay. That's what really concerned the manly heart. Ah, yes, they thought that women were too sentimental for politics. I remember the words of Premier Rodman Roblin. He firmly told me in 1914, I don't want a hyena in petticoats talking politics to me. I want a nice gentle creature to bring me my slippers. Take it from me, Mrs. McClung. Nice women don't want the vote. And the Manitoba Free Press, they reported him as saying, a woman's place is in the home. Her duty to the development of child character and the performance of wifely duties. Women's suffrage would be a retrograde step. Oh, wasn't he wrong? You should have seen the look on his face when the women in the Political Equality League staged the hilarious mock parliament at the Winnipeg Walker Theatre. It was January the 28th, 1914, and I myself played the part of the Premier. I quoted his exact words to me. The play was so successful there was standing room only, and we used all of the proceeds to fund the campaign for women's vote. The papers totally supported us. I remember reading the headline next day. It said, "Any doubt that women should be given the vote has been erased at the night of the Walker Theatre." But the battle wasn't won that easily. We still had to work really hard collecting signatures on petitions. We got 45,000 names on one petition, going from door to door, and quite often the door was shut in our faces. Even women wouldn't sign for the vote of suffrage. I remember there was this one woman, and she went and she collected 4,250 signatures all on her own. And she was 94 years old. Well, finally the work paid off. When we presented our petitions to the Premier Tobias Norris in Winnipeg, it was January the 29th, 1916. There was jubilation and cheering, and amid the unanimous consent of the legislature that the bill became law, and Manitoba became the first province to give women the vote. A couple of years after that, the federal government gave women across Canada the vote, except of course in Quebec, and that took another 22 years. And sadly, I passed away before our native women were ever given any voting rights. But you see, with the right to vote, we were able to support laws that truly affected our lives, like divorce laws to protect ourselves and our children from abusive husbands and fathers. Can you believe that when I was elected in 1921 as the first woman in the Liberal Party of Assembly of Alberta, it was still illegal for an abused woman to leave her husband? If she got caught taking her children to safety, she could risk a fine and imprisonment longer than if a man got caught stealing a cow. It was ridiculous. Women needed to get involved in politics so that they could pass laws that would protect them, that would be fair to them. Once I was elected, I was able to fight for women in matters of things like better working conditions, mother's allowances, minimum wages, and more. Of course, there was always so much work to do and so much prejudice. It was like when we went to fight the Supreme Court in Canada. You see, they supported the British North American Act of 1876. The Act clearly stated, "Women are persons in matter of pain and penalties, but are not persons in matters of rights and privileges." How preposterous! If women aren't persons in the law, it limits as to what we could do, even with the vote. So, my friends and I, later called the Famous Five, we went all the way to England in 1929. Prime Minister William Lyon Mackenzie, he supported us by paying the fees of our lawyer to represent us. It was so exciting, and quite possibly my biggest accomplishment, when the Lord Chancellor in England decreed, "The word person clearly refers to both men and women." Finally, we were considered equal, well, on paper at least. I expect poor Premier Roblin almost had a fit that day, though of course he'd been fired from his position long before. I imagine the poor man is probably turning in his grave now at the very thought of 1,000,000 women marching for equality. Well, I firmly believe that those women, just like their grandmothers before them, are filling their social responsibilities of women. Because you see, if we submit to injustice, if we submit to oppression, well, then we are rebelling against God. Women must fight. As a Methodist preacher's daughter-in-law, I firmly believe that it's what God calls us to do. It is the work of God's kingdom here on earth. Now, I know that some will use scripture to say that the lady's life should not be filled with ambition. They should say, liken her to the lilies of the field who neither toil nor spin. But to them I say, every plant has one ambition. The ambition to grow, to spread, to travel and get away from home. Every seed has a little plan of escape. Why, maple seeds, they spread their little wings, and if the wind does its job, they succeed. And other seeds get caught on people's clothes or animals' fur and skins, and they travel off to faraway lands of growth and promise. And I tell you, all plants struggle to reach the light, like the cucumber vine or the morning glory. They reach their tendrils out till they find a rusty nail or a fence, anything that can raise them higher and higher into the air, just like you and I, sister. We must raise out our trembling tendrils of our souls for something solid to rest upon. Do not let anyone quietly fold their hands and accept the role of the silenced woman. Let no woman hypocritically say, "Thy will be done." No, it is never God's answers, never God's will for injustice. This is not the vision of God's kingdom. Thy will be done is a call for fight, a call for better conditions, a call for moral and physical health, for a fair chance for everyone and every woman. Oh, forgive me, I'm getting all excited. I know that times have changed for women. But you see, I suspect there are still some that will try to use the Bible to suppress us, to put us in places of lowliness and below men. People who believe that women should not be in positions of authority. People who think that they will break the glass ceiling if they rise to power. Well, to those I say, think of the story of Mary and Martha. While Martha was busy in the kitchen, Mary was sitting and listening and thinking. You see, Mary placed emphasis on spiritual. And didn't Jesus say that Mary was doing the right thing? For she was holding on to things that were spiritual and deep in thought. Mary was an example that the great truth is not in the house we live in, or in the food we eat, or the clothes we wear. The great riches are in our thoughts that we think. And for each man or woman who believes that women should not think or strive to compete in a man's world, I tell you that question was settled long ago. We must think because we were given something to think with at creation. If God had not intended us to think, he would not have given us intelligence. I tell you, my friends, that from the very beginning of creation, God made men and women equal. There was no inequality in the beginning. Every woman had dominion over everything. There were no favors or special privileges, and whatever inequality has crept in since then has come without God's sanction. Christ came to rebuke the belief that brute strength is the dominant force in life. He came as a true democrat, making no discriminations between men and women. There I go again, getting all excited. You'd think that I was going to march on Capitol Hill with all the talk about Democrats. I don't know what will come from this march, but I do know that I feel that there is a new movement among women, a spiritual movement. Women have been scoffed at and jeered at and misunderstood for too long. I think that they have finally decided it is ready and time to revive the best instincts of womanhood. The instinct to save their race. The instinct to stand together. The instinct to be united. Oh, it's going to be exciting. And I, for one, am going to be cheering them on from a ringside view. So, if you'll forgive me, I should get back to my knitting. I have to finish my pink pussy.